This week on the Writercon podcast.
I feel like I did things the hard way because I didn't know about organizations before. Like I'm on Mystery Writers of America now. There's Women's Fiction Association. All of these organizations are so great when especially when you're first starting out.
Welcome to Writercon, a gathering place for writers to share their knowledge about writing and the writing world. Your hosts are William Bernhardt, best-selling novelist and author of the Red Sneaker books on writing, and Lara Bernhardt, award-winning author of the Wantland Files book series.
Thank you, Jesse Ulrich. Hey there, writers. Thanks for joining us today. It's good to be back here recording with my peeps. Do people actually still say peeps? Am I embarrassing myself? Is this like...
Those are two different questions.
This is like I was going to say when I was a kid. You're not that young, old, and like the first iteration of Teen Titans, Wonder Girl would be saying things like, hey, let's go to that groovy happening and rap. I mean, even if you're 8, they're pretty cringe inducing. I don't want to be that guy. Am I that guy? Tell me the truth.
You're not that guy.
No. I notice Lara is remaining silent, but whatever. Okay.
I think it's okay to say peeps.
Okay. If you're talking about those Easter candy things or just any time.
I think in general. Honestly, if those
cool.
Easter candy things would stop existing, I'd be fine with that. But that's a personal thing. So
now that's a whole different
that's
rabbit
a whole other
hole.
topic.
We won't
They're
go
a thing,
down that
though.
one.
Yeah.
Everybody here has been traveling, right? Like Jesse's been in Vegas, and Lara, you've been in Connecticut hanging with the daughters, right? Did you do anything bookish? Bookstores, indie bookstores, or just a lot of...
I got to eat Mystic Pizza and went to the Mystic Aquarium, and I hiked the Flume Gorge in New Hampshire. But nothing really book related. No, lots of fun things.
Sound. And Jesse,
it's okay. It's okay. I was okay with a break from books. It's okay.
What? No.
I saw a hockey game. That was
Nice.
just about
That's
kind of
literary.
anti-book.
Sure.
No, I feel like that's mean towards hockey players.
Is it?
Also,
No, I'm just
wasn't there
saying
whole
sports and
a hockey romance line we were talking about at
You're
some point?
exactly right.
Good memory.
Jesse, good job. You called
so
me
there's
out.
the
That's
literary
right.
tie-in. Good
That's right,
work.
that's
Listen,
right.
one of us lives
I even
these
read one
episodes
of
twice,
them.
so I remember these things.
Yeah. I
better
even read one
retention.
of them, so I really should have remembered that.
Sorry, I didn't mean
You
to call
I
got
it.
me.
know. The rest of us just show up, right? But Jesse's the glue. Anyway, I was saying, so you were in Vegas for this D&D thing. How
I
is
was. This is
Dungeons
the
and
shirt from
Dragons?
it.
It is.
How's that a spectator sport?
Again, it's an incredible feat of storytelling where this one guy has to wrangle 6 of his improv friends to complete a story from beginning, middle to end in about a 3-hour span in front of people. It also involving
Really?
dice that can randomly take the story in one direction versus another.
That's awesome. That's very impressive.
It's a lot of fun. It is.
Yeah.
It's one, impressive when it's done well, and 2, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Do they have
So-
time limits or
Usually,
that's probably negative
usually the location
thought.
has a time limit. It's usually around 11 p.m. that most
Yeah.
arenas.
Get out.
Even though this arena was inside the MGM Grand, so I don't know why they made us end at 11, but we did.
All right, vacation time is over. Now we are going to talk about books.
Sad.
And that includes our interview today with Courtney Psak, author of a new thriller titled The Tutor that people are calling Palm Royale meets The White Lotus, and is exploring themes like legacy and privilege and motherhood. And she's fascinating to talk to and listen to. We'll be talking with her very soon. But first, the news. So today we're having a special all litigation, all lawsuits all the time edition
Woo!
of the news. Cause for excitement. We've got at least 3 different lawsuits in the air that relate to writers. One positive. The other two, I don't know. I'm counting on my crack team of analysts to explain it all to me. That's you, Jesse, and you, Lara. First, and what I'm going to call a big victory for the First Amendment after 2 years of litigation about this House bill that would allow book rating, a federal judge has granted summary judgment and ordered a permanent injunction to block the mandatory book rating law. The court said the law is void for vagueness and is also, quote, an unconstitutional prior restraint, which is a fancy, cool judicial way of saying it violates the First Amendment. Mm-hmm. And most people thought this was a good thing for writers and booksellers and publishers and readers and everybody else. Team, can we agree this is a positive development?
Yes. I mean,
is this
still thinking about it.
Thinly veiled way to ban books? It feels too much like book banning to me.
They were trying to formalize a way to ban certain books by making them like R-rated or whatever. Yeah. Which, as we know with movies, doesn't really do a good job of rating movies anyway.
Right. So why bring it over to books?
Yeah.
Right. All right. News story number 2, or lawsuit number 2, I should say, something that's even weirder. Author Michael Wolff sues Melania Trump. Okay. We're going to discuss this, team, without getting political in any way. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that will muzzle all of you. But what's going on here? Why is well-known author, nonfiction author Wolff suing Melania? Well, because she and her husband threatened to come after him. He's working on a book. He's already done one. What was it? Fire and Fury, I think, about Trump. And now he's doing another one about them. And they're focusing on alleged ties to Jeffrey Epstein, not only by him, but by her. So she was threatening him with a $1 billion lawsuit. Mm-hmm. He's now suing her, saying that her legal threats are, this is a quote, intended to shut down legitimate inquiry into the Epstein murder, end quote. So what I saw just 2 days ago, as we're recording this, is that Michael Wolff, who is, 72 years old, not somebody you expect to be a big social media star, but he started doing this saga. He looks straight into the camera and explains his points. And that popularity from social media has translated into a crowdfunding campaign. As we sit here, he's raised over $500,000, which he plans to use to, and this is a quote, depose the president and the first lady. End quote. Okay, so at what point did this stop being about books and turn into something, I don't know, Jesse, this is like it's like Wolff is making a preemptive strike against someone who was at least trying to intimidate him, if not silence him. What do you think? Do you approve?
So listen, I can do this without getting political.
Oh, good.
Like, this is a tactic that Donald Trump has used in the past to silence people or to stop bigger suits from coming. So using that tool against him, I feel like in this case is appropriate. So good on him.
Stand up to it, Lara. I think I heard you murmur an assent or something.
Yeah, absolutely. Like in our first news story, we were talking about it's a way of banning books. This is trying to inhibit free speech. And I don't approve. We should be able to investigate things and find out exactly what happened. And there's not a way available to us to truly get to the truth of anything if people are silencing those who are investigating. Journalists should be able to investigate.
Right. What's interesting to me is that if this survives all the preliminary motions and challenges and becomes an ongoing lawsuit, Wolff would be entitled to take depositions from the parties on the other side, like the current president and first lady. And I don't really, they'd mess around and you have to schedule it, but I don't think you could avoid it. I remember Clinton was deposed during his presidency.
In civil cases, you can depose the president. So,
and if his subject is, the Epstein thing, and it's not looking like those files are coming out anytime soon. So wouldn't that be an interesting
But it also doesn't
door?
look like the story's going away. So, yeah.
All right, lawsuit number 3. Simon & Schuster, that's the Big Five New York publisher, is suing the estate of author Nelson DeMille. I bet a bunch of you will remember DeMille and his many, many, sometimes military, usually thrilleristic books, very popular. So turns out, late in life, he signed a 3-book deal, did the first 2, but he didn't finish the 3rd book before he passed away. So now basically Simon & Schuster is trying to recoup the advance they paid for the 3rd book, they're saying, as well as money they paid for an outline, because they paid $600 and something for, the book, and then $600 and something again just for the outline. Where is that deal when I'm looking for it? But anyway, I digress. So they want the money back. His heirs, his kids, are saying they never actually paid it. So they're trying to get back something that we never actually received. They're saying this is all about market sales. Impossible to believe that the Big Five would care about sales. And here's a quote: Simon & Schuster wanted to escape what it considered costly overmarket legacy pricing, given the decreasing profitability of the general major fiction market, end quote. So you hear what they're saying there. They're saying Dad was a legacy author getting paid those big advances, which in today's market you could not possibly make back. They're just trying to get out of the deal or to get out of the deal altogether because it didn't turn out well. Jesse, what are your thoughts here?
Well, first of all, one, if they didn't actually pay the family this or pay the author this,
that would make it quick.
Yeah, then that should be over pretty quickly. Then let's end this. And if they did pay the family or they did pay the author this money, too bad. Like, it's a contract you signed with him, right?
Yeah,
he's dead.
Just doesn't seem right to me but I guess when millions are at stake, the rules change and they do things they might not do in other circumstances.
Sure, the family could pay some of it back if they wanted to, but legally, morally, I don't like, I'm not on the Simon & Schuster side most of the time anyway, but I'm definitely not on their side here. Like, it's not like, this is just like universities who get mad when they have to pay a coach that they fired their buyout clause. You made the contract.
You made the buyout clause.
Yeah, it's your fault.
Yeah. And they don't know for certain that the kids would have even inherited enough to cover this. Lara, what were you saying? What do you think?
So first of all, this seems like it should be pretty easy to determine. There should be some record of that payout. It seems odd to me that is even a point of contention. But see, I see it as a little grayer. Yes, the deal was made with the author. So we've always heard that advances are just paid and then royalties sort of pay out against that, and you don't make any royalties until that's paid. So you don't normally get asked to return the advance.
No.
But that was contingent upon receipt of the 3rd novel, which they didn't actually receive. But now it's not the author; it's the
somebody else,
heirs of the author. So, it's sticky. I don't love it.
It's like I said, it wouldn't exist, I think, except millions are involved. So
also, like, by doing this lawsuit, they're putting this author's name back out there, which is probably going to drive book sales.
There is that. So put him back on the top of the charts. All right. Let's move to our Craft Corner segment, except, of course, as I'm about to explain, there's not going to be a new Craft Corner segment, and there's a reason. We have a big bit of bad news and sadness to convey to you this time in Craft Corner. One of our best friends and best supporters has passed away, and that was John Myers. It was very unexpected. He's been a Writercon regular for many years. He's a warm and wonderful person. we already miss him. He did several craft corners, and he wrote the book Write Better Together, and we're really going to miss him anyway. So we're going to let Craft Corner go silent this time, thinking of him in his honor, but we will be back next time with a terrific Craft Corner segment from our good friend Tamara Grantham. All right. Now let's talk to Courtney. Courtney Psak, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Okay, traditional first question. If you could offer writers one piece of advice, what would it be?
I was thinking to myself, I feel like I did things the hard way because I didn't know about organizations before. Like I'm on Mystery Writers of America now. There's Women's Fiction Association. All of these organizations are so great when especially when you're first starting out, because not only is there a community there, critique writers, but also just when you're trying to look into like forensics experts and, FBI police ride-alongs, all those things. It was just extremely helpful. And then, finding events where you can actually pitch to an agent in person rather than just kind of doing the cold querying. So those are things I really wish I had done earlier on.
Yeah. Very good points. Now, you started as a writer. You probably did other things, but you started writing and editing for magazines like Cosmo and other cool stuff, right?
Yeah. So, I went to school as a journalist major. My whole, Devil Wears Prada fantasy of working in the magazine industry and writing books on the side. So yeah, I had interned for Cosmo, Self Magazine. I was going for my master's in publishing when I was working with Modern Bride. And then just unfortunately, I graduated in 2008 and the financial crisis hit, and all of a sudden all the job opportunities went away.
Right.
But, thankfully with a communications degree, I pivoted to Nickelodeon, and I was a project manager there, and, still, writing books on the side while I did that.
Right. And eventually that paid off, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So your first book was 30 Days to 30.
Yes.
Now you have a thriller, The Tutor. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So The Tutor is about this woman named Rose. She's a widow, but a dedicated mother to her son, James. They're kind of all they have now. She's a struggling artist, but they really never had she never had a family before. She was an orphan. Her husband was a good father, but not a good husband. And his family was out of the picture. And, in comes this guy, Grant, who sweeps her off her feet. And shortly after they get married, he finds out that his mother, Evelyn, has been diagnosed with Parkinson's. So he asks if they'd be willing to move down to Palm Beach to help her. And, she wants to be a good wife. So that's what she does. But the problem is that Grant comes from a very generational, wealthy family. And Evelyn's very much used to getting her way. And she makes it very clear to Rose early on that she doesn't think that she's good enough for her son. She starts off with bribery, and then when that doesn't work, she starts digging into Rose's past and then finds unsavory things and decides to blackmail her. But Rose is obviously, because she grew up by herself, she's tough as well. And while she knew Grant's father passed away 20 years ago, she discovers that it was under suspicious circumstances. So she thinks maybe Evelyn's got some skeletons in her closet as well.
Yeah.
And then insert Isabel, who is, about 2 years out of college. Her grandmother, who was her only living relative, passes away. And she discovers the secret about the Caldwell family and becomes obsessed with them and follows them from New York to Palm Beach, edging her way into this tutor, and starts to do a little investigating on her own. And when she starts demanding answers, these three stories collide, and it just shakes this family's foundation to its very core.
Wow. So where did you get the idea for that? That sounds like a lot. Is this based on something that you actually heard about, or some stories that truly happened, or did you just invent it all?
I pretty much invented it all. I think kind of the start of it comes with just trust, how well can you trust the people that you let into your home? So I was from New York, New Jersey area. We moved to Palm Beach for my husband's job, and we didn't know anybody here. So I had an 18-month-old son. So if you need a babysitter, it wasn't even like I had friends yet to find a reference. And Care.com is great with, having background checks. But like my husband and I would be out to dinner. We're still sitting there like, well, what if they kidnap him? Like we would go and like come in and like check he's still in the bed, So you could just kind of think about those sort of things. And, with a tutor, it's not, you feel like it's pretty harmless. Like she works at the son's school because she managed to get a job through maternity leave there. So all the right, like I said, Rose is a good mom. She did her background check on her, but there's a first time for everything.
Well, I love to listen to true crime podcasts. And so, yes, this all makes sense to me.
And am I right in thinking this book is set in the glittering world of Palm Beach?
Yes.
Is that an environment you know something about or wanted to write about?
Yeah, I live in Palm Beach. So and I moved here about 6 years ago. So I can kind of, tap into Rose and this Cole, like coming into this brand new world and kind of just how amazing it is. But, one of the takeaways of my story is that, you see Isabel, Evelyn, and Rose, and they all come from different walks of life and everything. But at the crux of it, nobody can escape just basic human emotions and trauma. And like everybody has their insecurities, their jealousies, whether or not you agree with any of these characters and their decisions, you start to really understand the basis of it all and how you can't really blame them. You understand why they're coming from where they are.
So you're not going to lose all your friends as soon as your neighbors read this book.
No, I never try to. I don't want anyone for a second to think that anything is based off of them.
Yes, I know that feeling, but it still happens.
Yes.
Yeah. No, if anything, I feel like each of those characters are just kind of more a little bit of me, Even Evelyn, you're kind of like,
yes, exactly.
Love,
I completely get
because
that.
she just doesn't care. And it's like, if only I could like just not care and say some of the things that she says, and,
yes, but then people come to you and they're like, wait, was that me? No.
Like, no, that was me.
The book also clearly contains themes about privilege or legacy, if you will, and strong themes of motherhood. Intentional, or did that just come out in the writing?
The strong themes of motherhood definitely were intentional. I loved putting Rose kind of in the middle of this because she's trying to, her art is everything to her and she's about to kind of lose that. And so she's struggling to, make sure she does well with that. Otherwise she, that's all going to fall apart for her. She's got this husband now that's, very adoring on her and like wants her to be with him all the time. And she's trying to find that balance. Like, I want to be with him and be good for him, but I'm so used to being alone that, I like to have my time for myself and for my art. So she's trying to find like, am I being, too distant or is he being too clingy? And then of course she's worrying about her son. He suddenly has this opportunity now that he's in Palm Beach to be at this school that's like the best school in the country. And she just wants him to keep up. And that's why she hires the tutor, because she wants him to do well, but she just feels like she's being pulled in three different directions. And, we all deal with that struggle with our guilt, trying to do all the things.
Absolutely. So how do you approach a new project? When you're starting a new novel, do you outline? Do you just kind of make some notes?
I'm usually a very big outliner. I like to know exactly where I'm going because otherwise I just wind up writing myself into a corner. This story in particular was kind of interesting because I had written it and handed it off to my agent. And as I kind of thought more about it, I was like, this one's a little too predictable. I feel like I just kind of wrote it. And I was saying earlier to someone else that I kind of compare it to like when you're studying for a test, the teacher goes, okay, you have to study for a test. You're like, yeah, okay. And then it's like, yeah, but the answers are going to be up here for everyone to see what you wrote. And then you're like, oh, I actually really need to go back at this and look at it again. So when she had told me that editors were interested in it, I was like, all right, I need to fix this. It's not, they may like the idea, but it's too predictable in too many ways. And so I went back and, made Evelyn a character. It was normally a father-in-law and it just wasn't coming off right. And I love the dynamic between Rose and Evelyn and all the undercurrents, which you could only get between a mother-in-law and a daughter-in-law. And, and then I just went back and changed everything. So I got to a point where I'm like, okay, yeah, this is too predictable. How do I turn it on its head. And then we went that direction. It's like, okay, now we're going this way. And so this was the one time where actually I did surprise myself in the end. Overall, I had somewhat of an outline, but the ending, I was like, this isn't exciting enough. I need to do something else. And
yes.
that's what kind of came to me. But
that's really smart, though. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was helpful. But I mean, people that are pantsers, I'm like, oh, good for you. I wish I could do that.
No, I've had the exact same feeling you're thinking about. I write my planned ending and think, that's kind of boring. So the murderer is exactly who anybody with a brain thought it was all along. No, that's not going to work.
Yeah. So normally, even with an outline, my the whodunit changes at the end, but at least like halfway, I'm usually halfway or 3/4 of the way when I'm like, all right, we got to turn this one more time. Like, how can we do that without, throwing a curveball that doesn't make sense? You want everything to make sure that in the end, everyone's satisfied.
Yes, that sounds very familiar. I'm like that. And I think a lot of us are. We have that plan, but then we'll modify it as we write and come up with more and better ideas. So,
and that, like, as long as I have that, I don't have to be strict with my outline. It's just, I can't just sit down and go, okay, what am I going to do today? Because then I'm just, I'm going to get myself in a corner.
Yeah. So what does a typical writing day look like for you? What's your process?
So it kind of depends on where in the process. If I'm trying to come up with an idea, living in Florida, I can go for long walks and I'll listen to like suspenseful music because that reminds me like stop worrying about groceries and pick up and like focus on the idea.
Hey,
And then once I have the idea, I'll spend a week or two outlining and then I'll write like the first 5 chapters, the first 10,000 words I'll write and then I kind of take a step back because even though you have your characters in mind, those first 10,000 words give you an idea of like, okay, what kind of character, what direction do I want them to go? Do I want them to be sassy? Do I want them to be meek? What kind of character arc? And once I have that settled, it's kind of off to the races. And, that's my favorite part when everything starts to flow. And, I drop my kids off at school and then I come back and I have to set an alarm on my phone for when to pick them up because the hours just fly by.
Right.
Which is a lot of fun. But I write, my first draft is very, very bare bones. So it's just more focusing on the plot, making sure that it makes sense, that my characters make sense. And once that happens, I take a step back and then I go back like a week or two later. And that's when I like make it pretty and do my descriptions and more of my setting. And my agent is a former editor. So what's great is that when I send it to her, she's able to do a once over before we go on submission. But 90% of her edits or her notes are like, you need to describe more. What are they wearing? Because again, I start so bare bones at the beginning that she has to remind me, like, you got to go a little more here with description.
That's so helpful.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things that you've learned so far in your writing journey? Something that you might share with our listeners who are possibly aspiring authors themselves.
One question you always get asked a lot when you're like on these panels and things is like, how do you get through writer's block? One thing is, again, the reason that I had to go away from pantsing was because I would, get into a corner and then not be able to do it. But I use a program called Scrivener, which I absolutely love because, again, when you have an outline, you can bounce around. So in one of my books, I remember I got to like the sagging middle and you're like, all right, how do you got to make sure that you have enough of a word count, but you need to move the story along and you don't want to bore anyone. So I go, okay, well, what do I want to write right now that would be exciting? And I'm like, let me get to the climax. So then I would jump over and I'd write the climax and finish that off to the end. And then I go, okay, what happens right before them? What brings them to this? And I'll start to kind of write backwards. And then I go, oh, this would be good to foreshadow in the middle. And then I go back to the middle and I'll do that. And like, sometimes it's like, until like,
I'm fascinated by this. I don't know if I've ever heard somebody talk about this, just going ahead to the climax if they're stuck and then working backwards. I will keep that in mind.
Yeah, no, it really is helpful because then you get so much of that excitement. You go, okay, well, what's going to get them excited? What brings them to it? So I found that to be helpful.
All right, Courtney. So we've got the Tutor coming out this month in the United States, already been released in the UK. What are you working on next?
So the deal that I have with Hodder and Stoughton in the UK is a 3-book deal, and my editor is doing a digital first approach. So the first one came out in August. The paperback will be coming out on Tuesday, the 11th. My second book, actually in the UK, comes out January 15th, and the US paperback comes out April 21st. So I'm already starting to gear up on promoting The Hostess. So that story is about this couple, Natalie and Luke, who are able, they hit the jackpot when they show up. They find this rental house on this gorgeous Southampton estate. And it couldn't come at a better time because Natalie is recovering from brain damage after a traumatic car accident that she had in the city. And it's kind of rendered her agoraphobic because when you live in the city, you can't leave without seeing cars everywhere. So her husband, Luke, is hoping that the open space here and the beach will help her recover. So they get there. It's as beautiful as they were expecting. But when they get into the house, there's this 6'5" intimidating guy who yells at them to get out. And thankfully, the owner of the estate, Sadie, who's very glamorous and charismatic, apologizes and explains this is her groundskeeper. He suffers from PTSD. He's not used to social interactions, but he's harmless. So they kind of write it off. They look in the fridge and they see there's some snacks, and the shower looked like it was been used. So they're like, okay, he probably thought this was his own personal place, and now it's not anymore. But, Sadie and Natalie really start to hit it off, both trading war stories because Natalie's an ER nurse and Sadie's a former psychiatrist, and they're trying to talk about what's harder to heal, the brain, the mind or the body. And so Luke's relieved because he just got this brand new job that puts him in a different tax bracket, but he's got to be in the city and he's got to be working. So he's happy that Sadie and Natalie are connecting and can keep each other company, and she can keep an eye on Natalie for her. But he no sooner leaves, and all of a sudden these weird things start happening around the house. And Natalie is a very pragmatic person and knows that she's suffering a brain injury. And she's like, is my medication causing some of these hallucinations? Is Riley breaking back into this house, the groundskeeper? And things start to happen that become more and more sinister. And then she starts to wonder if there was an ulterior motive as to why Sadie rented out this guest house for the first time ever in the middle of July. And she worries that something very terrible has happened here, and she needs to get to the bottom of it before something possibly terrible happens to her.
So read The Tutor now, and in a couple months we can read The Hostess, right?
Yep.
Fantastic. Courtney, thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. This was wonderful.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Just a few parting words. We have posted more information on the website about this year's Writercon cruise. This year, we're leaving from Fort Lauderdale. It's an 8-day deal. We're going through the Eastern Caribbean, places I myself have never been before. And I think this is really going to be kind of exciting, especially if you're into tropical vistas and beautiful scenery and pebble blue water. And is there somebody who isn't into that? Anyway, Lara and I will be on board teaching. Our good friend and fellow writer, Betsy Kulikowski, will be there. One of the great all-time agents, Catherine Sands, will be on board, and she'll be happy to talk to each and every one of our participants. So don't miss out. Plan to be there now. It's March 7th through the 15th. Go to the website for more info, which is Writercon, WRITERCON.com. All right? All right, then. Until next time, keep writing. And remember, you cannot fail if you refuse to quit. All right, see you next time.